Welcome back to another episode of Spittin Hoops, episode 23. Got the number right for the first time. I'm here with Anthony, and we're going to be previewing today the Miami Heat, one of Anthony's least favorite teams to talk about because of the pain they constantly cause him. But first, we're going to actually start out on a potentially happy note for Anthony with the Jrue Holiday trade. Anthony, how are we feeling today?
Man, it was crazy, Max, seeing this pop up. I'm sure everybody saw this around this time. We can all think about where we were at the time. We'll be able to say that about the Jrue Holiday trade. Sitting on my couch and watching some football game and saw that. I think it's great. I'm super excited. I think a lot of Celtics fans I've talked to so far are very kind of polarized on the issue for various reasons. You are losing valuable assets for sure. And definitely talk more about it in depth when we talk about our Celtics stuff. But my gut is very happy about a veteran, great defender, sort of steady the ship kind of guy that's OP starting lineup.
Yeah, so to recap really quick the trade, so Jrue Holiday, who was just traded from the Bucks, the Celtics Eastern Conference rival, he was traded to the Blazers in the Damian Lillard trade a few days ago, which we did a video on, so check it out if you hadn't already. But also, so now he's just been redirected from Portland to Boston for Malcolm Brogdon, who was traded earlier in this offseason in a failed deal for Porzingis. And then Rob Williams, who, a little unfortunate, guy who came up with the Celtics, suffered some injuries over the last few years. A 2024 Golden State first-round pick, which I believe they acquired earlier this offseason in the Porzingis trade. I may be wrong about that. And a 2029 Boston Celtics unprotected first-round pick. Portland says they're planning to keep Robert Williams, but they're expected to take calls on Malcolm Brogdon. That's from Woj. Not super surprising, but kind of interesting to see them both keep Rob Will and DeAndre Ayton. And really quick, this brings the total package for Damian Lillard to DeAndre Ayton, Rob Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, to Mani Kumara, a 2024 Golden State pick, 3 picks from Milwaukee from 2028 to 2030, and a 2029 Boston unprotected pick. Pretty great package to me.
Huge pack. Whoa, okay. Great trade. Absolutely great trade. Walked back something I was going to say there, but I am thinking about the to Boston trade where I think it was 1 for 8 players in that swap. This is obviously a lot of different steps, but even if we think about are the Blazers going to hold on to Brogdon? I don't really think so. It feels like Brogdon is just kind of a step further down from Jrue Holiday, so I see them kind of flipping him, and then this continued haul for Damian Lillard expands even more.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really think Brogdon has that much value outside of just being a contract at this point. I mean, the Clippers, they backed out of that deal where they were not giving up much for him, if I remember correctly. So already there, that's kind of interesting. But even if they don't get much for Brogdon, this is still a great package of players. And also Brogdon doesn't really fit there. They got a bunch of young guards. Why add to that, right? Like Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson. Yeah. Pretty important guy. So I don't really see where Brogdon fits. He'll be gone, I think, in the next few days, but probably not a league-changing move, in my opinion. Overall, just this rounds out the Celtics offseason. This kind of puts a lot of pressure for Porzingis to play, with Rob Will gone. But I like that this is going to force Tatum to play the 4 a lot more, in my opinion. Overall, it's Marcus Smart's out, Malcolm Brogdon's out, Grant Williams out, and Rob Will is out. Porzingis, Jrue, Jordan Walsh, and a few other bench pieces are all in. Anthony, any first initial reactions? I know we'll do an actual Boston preview later, so you don't have to get in the weeds here, but
for sure.
Any first glances?
We lose a lot of emotional leaders on this team, I think, for sure. And we just lose a ton of defensive presence from last year. So obviously Rob Williams, Grant Williams, Smart, and Brogdon are all plus defenders. So losing them really is tough. Grant Williams, now the vocal leader of the Dallas Mavericks. Congratulations, Grant Williams, for those who saw the video of him.
Louder voice than Kyrie?
Well, did you see the video of him on Twitter?
Yeah,
it was fantastic. That's tough, but it's a different team. We go where Tatum goes, so everything else is ancillary, and these are some great ancillary pieces to what we need our superstar to thrive. So, it stinks a lot. They were here all homers except for Brogdon, but sad to see them go. But very excited. I think this puts Celtics back at the top of the Eastern Conference in terms of best odds to get to the finals in my mind. But we'll break it down a little bit more going forward. But very exciting.
Yeah, we won't dig into it too much, but I also would be very excited if I were you. This is also just great. Like, I love that the Celtics did this. It's another win now move. We saw the Bucks do one a few days ago, and the Celtics respond now. I don't know. Very fun. Like, and also I don't think they gave up that much. Like, a 2029 first and the Golden State pick this year, like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. Into other news really quick, another league shattering move, one that we will also remember exactly where we were when it happened. Cam Payne, who I've actually talked about a good amount over the last few podcasts, weirdly. He signs with the Bucks. Pretty interesting move. I think this was actually much needed. And I think it was a good move by Cam Payne. He's going to come in, he's going to play 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes, being like the off the bench point guard. I kind of like the move. And as much as it wasn't great last year, I didn't think it was that bad. So, why not? This is a minimum contract, good deal, in my opinion, and good move for the Bucks.
Yeah, and anytime you get a guy who can score 20 points in a finals game, that's a guy that why not? Why not? We got Dame. We're still lacking that half court offense that has hampered us in the playoffs time and time again. Even in 2021, like, it didn't look great. They had to grind out their games with their defense. They still need to make one more move, I think, to shore up their defense. Like, somewhere kind of on, like, their guards are going to torch these guys. So they got to figure that part out. But is it great pickup? Sure.
Yeah, like, I don't know who's gonna guard. Who's like insert any like
who's gonna guard
when DeJounte and Trey come to town, like, they both might have 35 on this team,
right.
And you know what, Dame might have 50. But
yeah, true.
That's the thing, right? But
what do you do when Jrue and when Jrue and White come to town? Then you're kind of screwed. Like, it's like, yeah.
Okay, Boston Celtics.
Talking early.
Talk your shit, bro. Talk your shit.
Yeah. I have to talk in a few minutes too.
Yeah, I'm dead. Yeah, exactly. So I guess we'll be moving on to our Miami Heat preview with another special guest, as we've been doing with these previews. Hope you guys enjoy. And let's preview the Miami Heat. All right, we're back here with another guest, our third guest. We're kind of on a roll with the guests right now. The resident Miami Heat fan, Justin. Say hello to the people.
What's going on? Happy to be here. Happy to represent.
Fantastic. Obviously, just like with every other preview, we're going to get into like the team record, the offseason, predictions, worst case, best case. And then we're going to have questions for Justin. So, Justin, let's start off with you. Like, let's get a pulse. Like, how are you feeling? I know it's been a rough week. You didn't get Dame, but how are we feeling overall with the Heat?
Honestly, I think there's, not necessarily a moment to hit the panic button right now. Like, season, we're months away. There's a lot that can happen in between. And we've had, first thing I'll say is I'm happy keeping the young core together. I'm obviously disappointed by not making a big move in the offseason, which was, kind of the thing that we realized at the end of the season was that was going to be what was happening next. But, with that being said, I'm very happy. I'll talk a lot more about why I love the Jimmy Bam duo and why I think they'll still be a pretty good group in the East.
Yeah, sweet. As you should. They've been pretty amazing overall. We'll start with last year really quick. You guys went 44-38 in the regular season. In the regular season, that was good for the 7th seed. You guys lost the play-in game to Atlanta, of all teams. Beat the Bulls in the next one. Ended up as the 8th seed. Amazing playoff run, right? You beat Milwaukee 4-1, New York 4-2, Boston 4-3, before finally losing to Denver 4-1. Jimmy Butler, Eastern Conference Finals MVP. But overall, pretty good season. No major transactions. You guys picked up Love and Cody Zeller on February 20th after the Dwayne Dedmon like salary dump.
Fiasco.
Yeah, the absolute controversy.
Some call it a salary dump. Others call it him throwing Theragun on the court. But it is what it is.
Exactly. Overall, Butler ends up 10th in MVP voting, second team All NBA. Bam tied for 5th. Sorry, and Defensive Player of the Year voting, second team All Defense. This is also the first full year of Tyler Hero starting. But he did kind of have drops in points per game, efficiency, etc., despite the extra minutes. But yeah, overall, pretty interesting stuff. Anything from that you want to go over really quick, Levine? We'll also get into obviously Jimmy Butler, Oladipo, and the bench, but anything there that strikes you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you covered it really well. It was just like, kind of I think the big thing was it was really hard for the team to find an identity, especially during the regular season. And I will say, like, the regular season was all over the place, whether it was like, honestly, Jimmy had a little bit of a health issue. I mean, like, he's not really one to play a full season. I will say it's also the same time he played like the most that he had played for us over the like Jimmy era. But like, even then that was 64 games. So like, obviously that last month of the season, something turned, the team got together. They like, skyrocketed in efficiency as well as like, they really picked it up on the fast break. And so like, I guess, you covered a lot of it that, the season or the regular season didn't really embody what the playoffs were. Now, what I will say is, and this is what I love. And I've just personally as a longtime Heat fan, the big thing I'll say is like, that was probably the most like Heat culture season I've ever seen. That really just went from like I kind of hate the tagline, but it was crazy. Like there's just like all the pieces that were missing and hurt, and just like going up against like well-oiled machines, especially in the East, and like just being able to not only just like compete but like dominate at times. That was truly just like hats off, one of my favorite seasons, despite us coming up short. Like it's just been so cool. Like I've never had such fun with role players as I have this past season.
Dude, I gotta say, like when the Celtics were playing the Heat before the series started, I think we might have even talked about it. Like just I felt zero comfort kind of going into that. Like conventional wisdom was saying Celtics in 6 or something like that. And just nothing about that made sense at all. And you guys, just the way all of your players turned into just like 12% better than they were in the regular
season. Like
just knew how to pass well consistently. They were all good defenders. They were all good scorers. Nobody had an ego, and it was damn impressive. So I mean,
yeah, no, I remember calling you and or you called me and you're like, what's your take with this? And I literally said like, we're not going to agree here, but like some way, somehow, I think we're going to find a way to get it done. And it was like, those first 3 games, I was like, all right, yeah, perfect. I'm right. And then, those last 3 games, you definitely, I was on the edge of my seat. And then, game 7 happened. I'm like, okay, back to regular stuff. But, that season, that round was insane.
It was insane. I wish Tatum hadn't gotten hurt on the first play of the game 7, but it was.
Yeah. Honestly, me too. I'll save this for the end, but there's nothing better, I think, than when it comes to the NBA, especially in the modern era with Heat versus Celtics. Maybe one of my hot takes.
Yeah, no, definitely. Really quick, let's just finish recapping the regular season. Jimmy Butler, career high in field goal percentage, second in points per game. Post All-Star break, like you alluded to, 25.5 points per game, 62% from the floor, and 43% from 3. Just a crazy last 20-game run, like absolutely out of his skin. Some of the downsides, a lot of Oladipo minutes during the season. Over the 43 games, I was shocked to see this. The 42 games he played with the Heat this year, he averaged 26 minutes a game. He shot 39% from the floor and 33% from 3. Pretty rough season out of him. And in the regular season specifically, like Martin, Vincent, Lowry, Strus, not really progressing or getting worse that much, just kind of stalling. Specifically in the regular season, Duncan Robinson definitely, fell out of the starting group, fell out of the rotation completely at times. And we got some fun Haywood Highsmith stuff, but again, none of this was representative of the playoffs where, Jimmy Butler, 27, 7 and 7 for the playoffs, Bam, 18, 10 and 4, and Vincent, Martin, Lowry, Strus, all key contributors, right? Like really stepping up.
Yeah, and I think one of the best things about that run is how they all sort of they all had their own moments. Like whether it was they all carried their own weight at different points. Like it's like you had Jimmy being the more ball dominant, primary scorer for the Milwaukee series, and then Bam really stepped up against the Knicks, and then obviously Caleb Martin took what it was for the Celtics. I'll have a lot to say about that, and then Bam in the finals, despite obviously, the hardest challenge in the NBA these days, guarding Jokic, I think he did a pretty good job for what he could do. And, also being able to match his offense in a sense of or offensive production. So,
Yeah,
kudos
definitely.
to all them. They did great.
Yeah, and I think something that's pretty interesting is although Martin ended up averaging I think 12 points per game over the whole playoffs, in terms of advanced stats and win shares, he finished second on the team in win shares ahead of Bam. I don't think that's representative of him being better. It's not representative of him being better than Bam, but it shows you that according to some measures, he was incredibly valuable despite putting up 12 games due to the timing of his points, clutch factor, especially against the Celtics. It felt like he could not miss for 4 straight games.
Well, that's the thing, and I really think that this is going to be a big, maybe this is a parlay to the prediction section, but Caleb Martin, one of his biggest strengths is going to be how he can improve at shot creation. He really was able to find himself as a ball dominant player, someone that can go around these pick and rolls, and that translates so much to the Miami Heat, because if you can have someone like him come out and then allow Jimmy to play on the baseline more, that's our bread and butter. That's exactly how we're going to win basketball games. And I mean, we saw glimpses of it with the Celtics. He's very dominant, but my question is going to be how can he consistently do that moving forward in a more dominant role on the team?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I guess that gets into the offseason transactions, right? You guys lose Strus, you lose Gabe Vincent, Yurtseven, Zeller, all in free agency. Obviously, Strus in the sign and trade. Oladipo is traded, Haslam retired. Heat legend, RIP. But you guys,
my guy.
Some funny signings though. Thomas Bryant, pretty interesting signing. Josh Richardson, who you guys signed and traded for Jimmy Butler a few years ago. Pretty hilarious.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty hilarious that he's back. But you guys re-signed Kevin Love and drafted Jaime Jaquez. Pretty. In terms of making the team better, that might not have happened. But in terms of preventing the team from getting worse, that might have happened, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
On the surface.
No, I think that's a great take. That's exactly where I think we are. The whole expectation was that we had to get better, and that definitely sunk, and we didn't do that, and obviously can't be happy about that. Especially the way that the East is looking, you have to improve. There was obviously luck in last season. There was a lot of other things, but I think our free agency moves, despite the minor pieces, and especially given a world where we didn't blow it up for Dame or any of the other guys, I think we were in a really good position to keep our young core. I'm a huge Nikola Jovic guy. I think that FIBA was incredible for him. He was the number 2 on Serbia, and was really, really a dominant role there. And, I really liked his ability, because a big thing that people have against the Heat is a slower pace of play. And that's probably can be one of their weaknesses at times. He has the ability to fully bring that as a 6'7", small forward, power forward, can just go straight to the rim. There's so much with that. I mean, he got bigger in the offseason. I'm happy with him. But, in terms of the other free agency signings, Josh Richardson, OG Heat guy, grew up, drafted, or not drafted, but drafted. Yeah, Heat culture, it's sad to see him go. He was nice, he's been all over the league now. I'm very happy that he's back. I think he's going to play a huge role on the fast break and being a wing. And, I think he's going to be a pretty good piece coming off the bench. And I'm very happy with the Thomas Bryant signing. Personally, would have, maybe like to see a little bit, waited out with Christian Wood, but, very happy with Thomas Bryant. I think that's going to take a lot of stress off of Bam Adebayo, given that, Cody Zeller was doing that for him. And there was so much that blew up on that end of having his understudy, and very happy to see him there. Strus, I'm devastated to see him go. That was one of my guys. The relationship that he had with Jimmy was impeccable. It's crazy. They were great teammates, and he had some very vital moments coming off the bench, starting. Sad to see him go, but I don't think he. You probably have the number, but I don't think he was that crucial compared to Gabe Vincent in the playoff run. He had some good games, but I don't think on average, I'm a lot more concerned with the loss of Vincent. I thought he was really starting to create, his own shots. He was a vital piece. We gave him the ball to go up against Tatum. I think it was game 1. That was a huge, trust, and obviously a member of the rotation. So for him to be gone, I'm upset about both of them. I've watched them grow, but that's that one is hurts a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fair. And also Vincent. I mean, Vincent was 3rd on the team in playoff minutes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
that's a tough one to lose.
Yeah, I remember I remember during the next series, it was, a big factor was going to be okay, how is he going to be from 3? And, he lit it up.
Yeah. So I guess that's pretty good recap of last season. I mean, overall, great season. Really, although the regular season was very iffy, make a finals, you can never complain, right? Now let's move to some predictions. Anthony, we'll start with you. What's your best case scenario for the 2023-2024 Miami Heat?
Okay, best case scenario for y'all boys. I put them in good regard. I think they can win more games than they won last season. If things kind of go well, if we're thinking about how sort of juggled, they start 2-5 to begin the season, and then they make their way up. They keep going. They have their ups, they have their downs, and then in the playoffs they become supersonic. They probably find some sort of middle path there where they kind of resonate. I could see, on a high end, I see them hitting 50 wins. That being said, I don't actually see them making the finals, and that's just because of who's there right now. I think maybe this take changes, but right now it's this combination of talent and veteran savvy. And granted, we did just pick up a guy who Jimmy absolutely cooked and then was trash talking while down 6 with 2 minutes to go. So that's not fun, but I think you guys definitely have an uphill battle in terms of who you're going to have to beat out. And, but I would say, I think your best case scenario right now, 50 wins, you make a ton of noise, you're a contender. I think you lose in the conference finals though, but that's where I see the ceiling.
Who do you see us losing in the conference finals to?
in this best case scenario?
Yeah.
I guess you're asking me then, do I think Celtics or the Bucks or the 1 seed or the 2 seed? So
yeah,
they don't want for another pod, but either way,
political answer.
Yeah,
yeah. Honestly, I hope you're right.
I think that's pretty along the lines of how I feel about the ceiling for this Heat team. I might feel a little bit differently though about the playoff ceiling versus regular season ceiling. I don't know if I see you guys as being a 50-win team just by nature of you're never always playing you're not playing your guys 40 minutes, and I think those are a lot of the teams that tend to overperform in the regular season, underperform in the playoffs. I think the best case scenario is that this last playoff run kind of showed that you guys have figured out defense in the NBA pretty much, because you guys were by far the best defensive team that I've seen in a long time, playing a lot more zone and switching than any other team in the league. And the best case scenario is for that to carry over and kind of carry you guys through the regular season. Maybe Haywood Highsmith, Luka Jovic, Nikola Jovic. Hopefully one of them becomes a guy who can play 20 minutes in a playoff game, right? Those small things, I think, adding up together could lead to another finals run, to be honest. That's kind of where I see it. I think an Eastern Conference Finals appearance would probably be a more realistic ceiling, but I totally think a finals appearance, should some of that other stuff go right, I think it's possible,
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you. I think the word. Oh, bless you.
I'm
Well,
so
where I
sorry.
think, yeah, you're good. Where I think, I think we kind of disagree a little bit with is, yeah, I think I see the flip side of you a little bit more. I think where we're going to get dangerous is when we get into the playoffs, and I say when, because I don't see a world where maybe this is leading into the worst case, but I don't really see a world where we miss the playoffs. I see us later than a 10 seed, but I'll talk a little bit more about that. I could see us a play it, but best case, I kind of see us, yeah, within a like 45-50 win window, but more importantly, I see us, I think, our best case is honestly going to be like a 4 seed in the regular season. I think, there's, obviously a lot of competition in the East now, and the Celtics, the Bucks, they're going to be able to come out and maybe not play their guys as much, but also just like win games on a regular. But I think where it's going to come down to is like, okay, if we can get a good enough seeding and we are in the playoffs, that's where we're going to excel at our best. And so, I think once we get in, that's where things are going to get different. I think that's where we could see, kind of where we saw like, okay, realistically, Milwaukee being heavy favorites against the Heat, but Jimmy Butler takes over a whole different role, efficiency goes up, playmaking ability somehow like significantly improves, and it's like, okay, that's going to be the catalyst.
That's interesting. I'm surprised you see them only as like a 4th seed ceiling, because Anthony even sees them as higher.
Yeah, well, okay. The thing is just I don't see us being a regular season team. Like, that's just not where we stand. And, Jimmy's getting older. I'm happy to see, I'm happy to agree, yeah, I hope you're right. And we are a higher seed, maybe thirds, maybe a better ceiling, but, I don't see us winning, this is not going to be our year to be first in the East. I definitely think, things go right. Like I said, we can do that. But, whatever happens on the free agency or trade deadline and, all of that, I think can improve our outlook. But, yeah, I see us as, 3-4 seed at best.
And the thing is, like, the thing, lightning in a bottle, I think last year for you guys was lightning in a bottle. You won. You did the thing. But it was lightning in a bottle. I don't see that happening 2 years in a row, which is why I'm more on the side of if you do have that success in the postseason, it is because you've had a good season. I don't see another one of these like, oh boy, you're 40 something wins, like low 40 wins, like, and all of a sudden you're going to go on this trajectory. That's just hard to do. And it's impressive that it happened once. I think that how often does that happen? Like in the NBA, like so. This was an 8 seed that made the finals, and that's happened 5 times in NBA history. So, do I see that happening again back to back? Probably not. But like you said, if they're a 4 seed or a 3 seed, and they kind of just like they only need to beat one of those teams to make it to the conference finals between the Celtics and the Bucks. So they can definitely do that because they've done it again. They're not scared of either of those teams. So I think that's a huge mental advantage that you guys have. But I also think that's why you guys will probably end up having a better record in the regular season as well. Like, I don't think anybody's surprised anymore, if that makes sense.
No, I totally agree. And I really like that sort of litmus test that you put up there that you're saying, okay, it's going to be the regular season that kind of shows where we are. And it's like, okay, either, we're kind of backing up what happened last year, or, it's, not necessarily exposed, but we're not going to be able to pull off what we did last year without having kind of proven it that there is some congruency from last season to this season, or last postseason to this season.
Right.
What about worst case scenarios? How are we feeling there?
Ooh.
Oh, why don't you go ahead,
Anthony? 1, 2, 3 into the 4. Seeds down the Heat fall. Many, many more. 5, 6, 7 to the 8. We got Knicks, Cavs, Sixers. I don't see the Raptors. Hawks, maybe, probably not. Magic, maybe, probably not. So I don't know. I think you guys get injuries. That bug kind of comes to bite. The East just kind of remains deep. The Knicks take a bit more of a fortified step. The Cavs have a year of cohesion. Who knows with the Sixers, but they're always good in the regular season. And then I think you guys probably lose in the first round, but I don't really I don't think you guys fall out of the play-in or anything like that. I think you just have a tough first round matchup and get the short end of the stick as a low seed.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's a great place. I think the same way. I definitely see us worst case play-in. I don't see us not making the playoffs, being, in sort of sell territory, let's get draft capital. Because, we're still in a window, it's definitely a lull of a window, but, I think we have enough to definitely contend in the East. So, 9th to 11th, I think is a great, or 9th to 10th is, really worst case, but, that might even be a stretch.
I might be a little lower in terms of worst case. I mean, I think it would be difficult to envision, right? But hear me out. Let's say Jimmy, Bam, Lowry, and Martin. Let's say they have 40 missed games combined. That might be a little tough. We also have the resting restrictions off. This is a team that likes to rest their guys on occasion. And then let's say the Pacers, really start playing a lot better. And then let's say there's another mystery team that pops up again, like the Kings in the West last year, for example. And the Heat have a bad season there. If you're in the play-in, you can lose, And even then, I think there's a chance that it would be a low percentage chance. There's a chance you guys end up as 11th seed, in my opinion. I don't see you guys being worse than the Nets, for example. As much as I do like the Nets, that would be kind of a stretch. But let's just say the Pacers and a mystery team like the Raptors make a big jump out of nowhere, which would be unlikely. And all these things go badly for you guys. I think you guys could miss the playoffs. Could you say that about a lot of teams that are contending? If there's injuries and some mystery teams, you could probably say that. But I do think the regular season was almost so bad for you guys last year. I think it's a little bit more realistic, at least for me. But yeah, I don't see it happening.
No, I mean, I think you're right on the money though. There, it's definitely plausible. I think it's very interchangeable with a lot of the, contenders as well as let's say playoff teams last year. There are going to be movements. One team, for example, Orlando. They're Paolo takes a jump, we're talking, we're having a different conversation. There's
Great
only
example.
8 spots, who's going to move up, who's going to move down. We're definitely, we kind of have a target on our back for that matter.
Yeah. Predictions time? Anthony, you want to lead us off again? Or Levine, you want to lead us off?
Let's hear it.
All right. This is probably my favorite thing I'm going to bring up while I'm on the show today. Bam Adebayo, DPOY. And I know it might be a little hot, but I also think, there's plausibility there. He's had some incredible seasons at defensive efficiency. And, I'll even take a page out of the Marcus Smart book. One thing that was, I'm really, really excited to see him do even more is the 1 to 5 guarding. He very much could be in contention for that, who's a best defender 1 through 5 overall, who's going to be someone that you're going to want to switch on, game on the line, Bam is someone that I want there. I think, he has just such an ability to command the floor, especially in the zone defense works so well for him. It's so well. And, that's the biggest thing. And I think we're going to see an improvement with him in the offseason is, he was already switching like crazy. I think it's going to go to a whole nother level this offseason and going into next season. And I think, he's been just on the cusp there. I think, he definitely had a shot last year. I think it just sort of, got clouded in the fact, obviously JJJ, ended the season very strong and, a couple of the other guys ahead of him. But I think there's definitely potential going into next season. And so might be a little bit of a hot take, but, I'm here for it.
I think it's a pretty good take, no lie.
All right. Yeah. Well, then it's not a hot take.
I think it's a solid take. I mean, in Depoy's it's always there's always somebody that kind of comes out of the woodwork too. So it's tough to like see the trajectory. He's a depoy like level guy for sure. But I mean, I'll build on your take, Levine. I mean, okay, realistically, I think how in terms of how their players go, I love Jaime Jaquez. I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be all rookie, either first or second team. I think Jimmy is all NBA. Because he just has that kind of game that just ages very, very well. You know, he's great at everything, and he's not like the best at anything specifically. And you can't really teach that, and that just ages really well. He's not like the type of disgruntled player that loses kind of their focus if they're frustrated about a situation and stuff. He's not happy about not getting Dame. He's not happy about not getting Jrue. But that's not going to like take him away from that sort of focus that he has. And then I could see Bam definitely being like an all NBA third team, maybe sneaking in there, especially based on how the new all NBA kind of requirements are looking. So that's how I think your awards go individually. I think Spo just remains a great, coach of the year contender, but probably doesn't get it due to narratives. And then I think you guys probably lose in the second round, because you're either facing the Bucks or the Celtics. And I just right now, I don't see you guys beating them. So that's realistically what I see happening right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, I honestly, I kind of expected you to have a little bit more of a negative outlook. This is kind of great. We should talk hoops more often. I'm pretty happy with, I'd check all the boxes there, to be honest, Anthony.
Woo! Hey, just because I hate the Heat doesn't mean I don't respect
it. A rare moment of unity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I do want to say, though, on your Jaime Jaquez point, he looks so NBA ready. The footwork is there. I think the scoring abilities, summer league looked great for him. I'm so excited. With all the Dame, umbrella being there, I was real nervous about Nikola Jovic and Jaime, and I'm just so happy that they're on this team because, what a better place to be than, developing in the Heat organization. I think that's just amazing.
100%. He's been amazing since UCLA. And he fits right into the culture. And I'm with Max too. This is a great showing of unity between you and I. And I think there's a lot of countries out there that could take a page out of our book.
That is insane.
I know.
Can't they?
We are building bridges right now.
We are. Exactly. I'm not doing
Pat Riley's going to pull the fire alarm before the trade deadline to get some deals across. I'm dead. Here, I'll give you my predictions, honestly. I think that you guys are going to fill up the gaps that these role players have left. Gabe Vincent, I will say, I think Gabe Vincent will be a big loss. I think he's fantastic, frankly. But I think Hero will be fine. I think, Duncan Robinson will not be as bad as he was last year. We saw him in the playoffs. He was just night and day. I thought he was great in the playoffs. And I think Bam is going to have a great chance to win Defensive Player of the Year, especially the way you guys play. I believe in the regular season last year, you guys played 20 to 25% of your guys' defensive possessions in that zone. And in the playoffs, you guys took it to another level where you're just playing it a little bit less, like 15 minutes, but you're extending it and having like a press where it's like Martin, Butler pressing up top, and we're going to sit our point guards who can't defend in the corner. It's going to be Lowry and it's going to be Vincent. And I'm not saying they can't defend, but they're not great defenders. But like hypothetically, you could just replace that with Hero and Robinson, and then you have Jimmy, Martin, Bam. As much as that might not sound like a super great lineup on paper, it's one that I feel like could work pretty easily and would have a lot of scoring, right? So I think those gaps might get filled. But that said, I don't see you guys being like a top 3 seed just by nature of like team style, etc. And then I don't see you guys overperforming in the playoffs again. So I see probably a 4 seed, 5 seed, and a second round loss to Boston or Milwaukee.
We're probably owed one too. So I feel it. I'm there. I'm with it. I can't disagree.
I will say, I do think if stuff does not look like it's going well, there's always a chance for a trade. I think it would be out of character for Pat Riley to overreact and make a huge trade mid-season, in my opinion. But who knows? Who knows?
No, I
Maybe
mean, you're
Jimmy
right.
Butler gets in his ear. You never know.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, historically, that's not the way that he would run the team. It's
Yeah.
always an off-season move, and so there not be any is more the okay, we exceeded expectations, but we're back to reality, and we didn't make a move because I think of that, and if hindsight gives us 2020 vision, I make a move on the Beal deal at the beginning of the summer, given what we're giving up in that case, that's securing it, giving us however it may be, Jimmy, Bam, Beal, whatever is involved there too. I wish we did that, but we didn't. But
I love that fit too. I think the stylistic fit there would almost be a little bit better than the Dame stylistic fit, although Dame is obviously the better player than Beal.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I totally agree with that. I kind of love our mentality of whale hunting, but I also think we need to stop that. To an extent.
Well,
We just keep on doing that, but I think we'll get one inevitably. History is on our side with that, but I think it's been a rough road the last 2 years.
well, on this topic, we can go to the hot take section because I
Oh,
know
here we
we've got
go.
some spicy hot takes loaded up. Anthony, we'll start with you because I know you have some hot takes and one on maybe the topic that Levine just discussed.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, bro, just I know you're wearing one, but stop the cap. Like we don't need to talk we don't need to talk about the Heat being a free agent destination. Okay, you got LeBron, you got Bosh, what, 13 years ago. Let's move
Yeah.
on. Let's refocus on what the situation is. I got two takes. One is that you guys haven't had a great free agent in the last, I don't know how many years, like Shane Battier, Ray Allen, Mike Miller. You got some good players. You get your guys from deals. I mean, no doubt you get Goran Dragic coming in. He's a great addition. Jimmy Butler, obviously you're a big guy, but you guys had a long stretch there of mid Wizards level mid mediocrity, and nobody was coming to Miami to save you. Like it just was not in the cards. And so that's part one of it. And then part two is we just kind of live, and this is just more a statement on the NBA in general. Like we live in an NBA that free agency for superstars is just not as frequent. It happens, but it's kind of like it's rare scenarios now. I'm thinking of like Kawhi Leonard, like as like a top tier kind of superstar, and that was kind of the Raptors knew the deal when that trade happened. But usually teams, when there's a few years left with their superstar now, they get nervous and they're like, okay, we got to figure out what we're gonna do here. We just saw it with Giannis, and then we saw it as well with Dame in terms of I want out. We see it with Harden. I want out. Like it's sort of like this, I'm going to force my way out. It's a new way of doing it. That doesn't always necessarily mean they end up on the team that they want. So even though Dame did want to go to Miami, he wasn't a free agent for it. So I think that's one of the perils I would avoid. So my hot take, maybe it's a bit more tepid, but like y'all can't just be like, oh, we have free agency, we're going to be just fine. It's not going to work like that. Luka's not going to be left by the Mavs for pennies for nothing and then just saunter on over to the Heat. That's just not how it works.
Yeah. No, you're right. I totally agree with you. That being said, I very much agree with your take that the way that the NBA has shifted, it's not a free agency destination anymore. There's all these, what am I doing 1 year out, expiring contracts, obviously, we're looking, the Dame situation is perfect with that. It's like, okay, I'm not a free agent, but I'm demanding a trade. And, that being said, I think we're going to get a lot of those in the near future. In the next 1 to 2 seasons, we're going to see a lot of those. I'm not saying, and I'm prefacing this with, I don't believe all of these guys are going to the Heat, but, Donnie's going to be a free agent. You said it yourself, Luka. I mean, the Bucks just made practically an incredible move to, say, hey, Giannis, we're committed. But, Giannis is a free agent in a couple of years. We're going to see a lot of these, stars that have kind of, or, young stars that are building themselves, finally get this opportunity to say, okay, let me test the market. And so, I definitely think there's some opportunities that are going to be, in the next few seasons. But I agree with you very much that, that can't be how you surround yourself and plan to add pieces to the team, especially a superstar these days. And so, I think that, free agency might not be the move, but there are going to be a lot of, we're coming up with some whales in the future, and you definitely throw your hat in.
I kind of have a contrarian take, maybe. Like, I think Miami is a free agency destination in terms of like free agency / FA signing trades over the last 5 to 15 years. I think they've been one of the best teams at attracting superstars. But then also, I do agree with what you're saying, like Anthony and Justin, like you're not going to get these guys in free agency anymore. You're not getting LeBron James in free agency. Like that guy's not hitting free agency at age 27, 28, whenever he did, like that just doesn't happen. So I do definitely agree with that. Also, here, I'll hop in with one of my hot takes really quick, I guess, to piggyback off this. But I think it shouldn't have been super surprising that Miami didn't make a deal in the offseason. This is not a team that's historically going to sacrifice a ton of future assets to make a trade, to get a star player. Bosh and James, free agency. Jimmy Butler, sign and trade. Alonzo Mourning was Glenn Rice in a first. Shaq was big trade, but it wasn't like 8 years of first round picks like we've seen for like James Harden and stuff. So overall, I don't think it's too surprising. I think you guys are kind of a team that really waits and tries to undercut deals and get that good deal, which works against you guys and works for you guys sometimes. But that's kind of where I see you guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a great take. I think, you really kind of just explained it there that, it's the undercutting of deals that is really, we win some, we lose some. When we win, we hit a home run. When we lose, we strike out. And, that's just what's happened. We've been striking out at the plate a lot. And, I really don't foresee us changing that methodology. That's the way that Pat has always done it. I mean, literally you said it yourself, like, going in, the Shaq deal, the Mourning deal, it's, we're not seeing deals like that anymore. But, I think there's a growing consensus just in the Heat community as well that, you want to, make a push for that, whether it be like adding more pieces to that Dame trade and, overpaying, Pat's not going to do that. And, that's kind of where we stand. And so, it's going to be interesting to see because, that's kind of, I guess, an older school of, NBA management versus, new school of like, you have Matt
Ishbia.
owner. Ishbia. And, where he's like, okay, load it up, pay a premium.
6 first.
Literally like, let's build a super team and like, let's go win now mode. Almost like what you see in the NFL, like, what you saw with the Rams, where it's like, literally let's just build the super team. And, inevitably it will explode and we will have to, run that risk of, okay, it's win now.
Yeah. Like we'll figure it out later sort of thing.
Yeah.
I got another hot take unless Anthony, you want to hop in with one.
Yeah, let's hear yours.
Okay. So Gabe and Strus leaving, like that sucks, right? I wonder, and this is almost like a question hot take, but this is super random. But do you remember, Levine, when the cap jumped, or like right after the cap jumped in like 18-19, and it was the Tyler Johnson offseason where you guys re-signed him to an offer sheet for like $50 million for 4 years. He lasted 6 months on the team, and he was gone. And I wonder if there's a hangover from that offseason. You guys, I think, made a few other deals. It was the Whiteside. That was the Whiteside extension offseason, if I remember correctly. A few other ones. And I wonder if there was a hangover from that offseason, although it's been a few years, to not want to overpay role guys who might be overperforming.
Yes, absolutely. When I look back to the Justice Winslow, Hassan Whiteside, Josh Richardson, the Tyler Johnson team, that
Dark
still
days.
haunts me to this day. Literally, I mean, Hassan Whiteside, is kind of just, that's him. Like, that's literally what he was, is, he literally had a quadruple double and, could put up these incredible numbers. But, it's like, look at where he went after that. Maybe I'm wrong about the quadruple double, but no, he had a triple double with
blocks.
Not quadruple. Yeah. And it's like, that was like an insane, stat line. We saw, glimpse of like elite player, and we bid on that, and we were like, okay, like we want to have him, be a part of the team long term. And it's like you kind of see that, like, we definitely, I think, have pulled back from that. That being said, that's also a very like historical thing that happens with the Heat. We get these role players, we develop them, and if we have time, I would love to go through my rundown of the Sioux Falls Skyforce, because I've got some takes there as well on like some of the soon to be Max Struess's, soon to be Gabe Vincent's, because I watched them play for a little bit, and I'm excited to see. And that happens a lot of times, and I've seen that we have these like these playmakers, these people who come in, and that's kind of like a cycle that we go through. It's like yes, I'm not happy that we didn't try and match Max Strus and match Gabe Vincent, but that's also the nature of the NBA. Is like, okay, someone's going to pay these guys now because they have a spot to fill. And see, they're not going to have the situation to draft that, or they're not going to make a trade with that. They're going to go out there and, they're going to use free agency for, what it has become in the NBA, which is like, okay, here's a guy that overperformed and we can pay him on the market. And so, where I do agree that, we have some hesitation from that, I also do think that that's just like very cyclical and in the NBA.
I think that's fair, honestly.
It's a fair point. Levine, I got a question for you. Just first off, like, one of the things we love about having guests onto this pod is we talk about these sports and these teams that we love so much for a reason. So for you, what are the first moments that you have as a Miami Heat fan?
Well, I think some of the first ones are, it's going to be seeing D Wade as a young player in the league coming together with Shaq. And, honestly, one of the least talked about chips, I think it's come into glimpse a little bit more, but, I think I put the Pistons chip like above them, but, and maybe I'm a little too young to remember, I guess, how good the team was. But, what I remember is like, D Wade's only been in the league for a couple of years. And I mean, he's averaging over 30 in the finals. And it's like, that being said, I haven't seen that from, really one of our, like, there's been a couple stars that have done that recently. But, if we look at the time from, 2006 to here, like, how many, like, young players in the league have done that? And, that's like, where I'm like, wow, that always kind of like, blows it out of proportion for me. So many moments, I mean, not to just flash forward to, LeBron, but that's that was a huge part of it. Like that was a crazy time. To be like, wow, like this guy's coming to the team, and I mean that already solidified it for me at that point. Incredible times, incredible experiences going to games and watching it on TV, and it's on the news, and they're at school, and like I still have the newspaper in my room at home, and the banner and the shirt and the hat. I had a couple opportunities to meet some of the players over the time. Like I have a signed hat from Mario Chalmers, and like for me, that's way. Like this goes crazy.
That's
like,
crazy.
It's like it's just like I think about that. I'm like, yeah, and like some of my favorite role players today. It's like, damn, I got Mario Chalmers. Like I'm seeing like now there's like the Duncan Robinsons, the Max Struesses. It's like wow, like those role players, they they've made me very passionate about watching these teams, because it's like, they have their own like historic moments. And, obviously the superstars, Miami's always been a great destination. So, it's always been a joy to watch them play. And, we've been spared from, really having a couple like bad seasons, but, we've always been competitive. The coaching, I don't really see a better coaching luxury in the NBA than going from Pat Riley / SVG to Eric Spoelstra, who like objectively is like, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, but the fact that, USA basketball is ran by Kerr and Spo is like God tier. Like that's just like incredible.
Yeah, so yeah, that's actually fascinating.
That's fine. Yeah. Real quick, I got one more based on that about Spo. So I'm thinking about 20th century coach or 21st century coaches, right? I'm thinking about him. I'm thinking about Kerr. We're thinking about Popovich, Phil Jackson. Where do you put Spo in this century?
David Blatt.
In this century?
David Blatt, thank you.
I mean, honestly, I mean, I'd honestly, I'd put him in like what, top 5, top 10. I think there's an argument for top 5. It might be a little hot there, but I mean, he's done it. He's won. He's brought teams to the chip. I mean, this year especially was a big one. That was I think that was probably his hardest road to a championship. And I think it's incredible that he did that. He's had the best talent in the world. I would say he's had harder times, but it's we've rarely seen them miss the playoffs. We've rarely seen like bad years turn into bad eras. And I think that's what, has embodied him to really be a good coach. I think, he's going to need a couple more chips to be, like all time. But, I think you put him up there with Kerr, Pop is definitely a little bit higher, but, you put him up there with Kerr, maybe just a tier slightly below, like, Pop, Kerr, Bill. And then it's like, Spo, I guess you guys.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I might have Spo ahead of Kerr. I think the stuff that Spo has done with lesser talent is more impressive than any coach I've ever seen. And like Kerr, as much as he came in and put in like one of the most visually appealing offenses we've ever seen, right? He also had Steph Curry, right? Like, yeah, not to gaslight my own coach, but like I think Kerr is like a very good coach. But actually, in my opinion, from in the 21st century, if we're talking 21st century only, if we're talking about all time, it's like a little different, but 21st century only, I think it really might be Phil Jackson, Spoelstra, and then Pop. For me, I think Pop has been able to create cultures and a lot of ball movement and stuff like that. But in terms of being able to do a lot with potentially lesser talent, I think Spoelstra blows everyone out of the water. And then I don't think it's particularly close. He's also been able to develop talent over and over again, just like Popovich, which Kerr has like not really been able to do, frankly.
Yeah, and I'm happy. I mean, I know you're a Jimmy Spo guy, so like I can't complain. But I mean, that's like the big thing is like I guess if we're not looking at so much from like a success perspective, but it's like like who's insane enough to run a zone defense in the NBA, but not only to do that, but to like make it work. And like I think that's where like I think that's incredible. Like the way that like he controls the mode of the game. It's like I think that's a huge reason as to why like we had a jump in the past playoffs was literally because of coaching experience and like ability to slow the game down, pick it up when we needed, run a zone when like I think you have 90% of the other coaches in the NBA say absolutely not. Like we're going to give that that's basically at times it can be waving a white flag, especially in a playoff game, and it's like okay, no, we're actually going to go full pedal to the metal, and we're going to run this zone, and we're going to do that press. In 2 minutes left in the game, and and we're going to press, and it's going to work, and it's going to throw teams off, and it's like that stuff definitely. I'm like okay. This puts Spo in like top tier conversation because it's like I don't think anyone's like sane enough to do that, but it's also like it's something that experience can only like show you, and it's like experience and like a like really good mindset as a coach, and I think that's where he's really shined. And like you said, like he's done more with less than Kerr, for example.
Definitely. No, I definitely agree. Piggybacking off that, if we're just like throwing questions now, something that I think is the most fascinating thing that is kind of like most fascinating question for the Heat going into this season is Tyler Hero. Where do we go with him, right? It was the first season starting. He statistically got worse, but he also he wasn't bad, right? He scored 20 a game. But trade rumors, he gets hurt game 1 of the playoffs, never plays again in the playoffs. And so with Tyler Hero in the regular season, you guys had like a 54.5% win percentage. Without him in the regular season, it was like 53%. But in the playoffs, you guys were up to like a 56% win percentage team in the playoffs without Tyler Hero, right? So pretty interesting stuff there. I'm just curious, where do you think he slots in? What do you think his future is like?
All right, so I have a 2-prong answer to this. Like, and I think first it's a little bit more like, where does he slot in? I think he slots in perfectly to the starting lineup. I think, there's a lot of, I think he really opens up our toolbox a little bit more, because I think we're going to be looking at a little bit I think the big thing that, is going to surprise people is he had a pretty impressive floater game last year. I think we're going to see so much more of it. I think, with guys like Brunson in the NBA, we're looking at floaters and the point guard or, the guards, making a run, working on mid-range, creating their own shots. And I think that's something to have two shot creators on the Heat is going to be very impressive. But I also think he's going to make huge strides in the off ball play, as shooting from the wing, shooting from the corner. These are things that I think he's going to do well. And I think the biggest jump that he can take is going to be, okay, how am I driving to the basket, but how am I also going to, translate that into free throw efficiency? How am I going to, he led the league in free throw percentage last year, but it's okay, or was 1 or 2. On top of that, how am I going to get those chances more? How am I going to turn 20 to 25, 25 to 26? And, I think those are going to be the biggest questions to ask. But I also think, we proved that we can fully run an offense without him. And so, I think that is a very, we've gone back and forth on this. The most expendable asset in the NBA right now is a 20-point per game, young guy on a rookie extension. That's a great thing. You were able to get Poole. Obviously it was a crazy deal. But,
it didn't work out, but yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a really good piece to punch into deals. And the reality is that that's going to show value to a team that's looking for a shooting guard, especially, one that has proven that, can play payoff minutes, can do well at that. But, I think the biggest question surrounding him is okay, how high is this next jump going to be, if there is one? And, I think he has the potential to definitely reach 25, 26, there's really nothing backing that, that I could say other than I've seen him in the gym, on Instagram every morning at 6 a.m. I've been watching it. He's one of my favorite players that's come to the team, because, the confidence he plays with and, just the way he's on the court, it's just, it's fun. And, I see a world where he could be a ball dominant player for the Heat and he could be the person taking the ball up the court. And he's an amazing clutch time player, shockingly a lot more clutch than you would think. Yeah. And on paper. And it's I think that, can lead to more ball dominant opportunities. I think, like I said, the efficiency is going to go up, if he can make this jump and okay, getting from 20 to 25, I think he's going to slot in perfectly. And, that leads to the best case scenario there. Something like that is going to be pivotal if he can be sort of the conductor at times. And so, and that plays right into my point of, okay, well, what does that happen with Jimmy? Well, that gives Jimmy more baseline opportunities and his bread and butter. So, I've got a lot of positive things to say about Hero. That being said, the defense, I'm shocked you guys didn't bring that up. The defense is going to be a big question. The Dame Hero, duo scared me a little bit because at that point we're just betting on, okay, how offensively good can we be? And, we're a defensive mindset team, so that doesn't really fit our, MO. But it's at that point we're saying, okay, you know what? Our guards are just, not really going to play great defense. That being said, Tyler Hero's got some defensive highlights, but, the numbers don't lie. He's not he's not in the top tier, or he's not really a great defender when it comes to NBA standards.
I mean, I like what you're talking about with the opening up of the floor, especially on the offensive end. That's kind of where you lost some of your juice last year in the finals. Granted, you're playing against the most talented player in the NBA right now in Jokic, or most skilled player. So that was tough. But there were definitely a lot of times when your offense lagged. And could there be this trade-off in terms of we get this 20 points per game guy, he expands his offensive game a little bit like you're talking about. He can also fit in his spots. He seems like one of those types of guys. Once you're with a program and a culture long enough, you kind of start to fit in terms of what the identity is on defense. So could he become not a terrible defender, but slightly below average defender? That's fine. You can kind of hide that a little bit. You don't have to worry about it nearly as much as a complete liability like Dame is going to be this year on Milwaukee. So yeah, I feel that for sure. I think your response about like he should be a better defender is sort of like, yeah, that's true. And at the same time, that's not what I think the Heat are looking for him. If it comes out, that's a huge plus, though.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's a great way. Yeah.
I guess this is probably my last question on my end. Is there any chance that Miami is closer to blowing it up than buying? Is like if maybe blowing it up is drastic, right? But is there any chance you guys are like looking to retool sooner rather than later, rather than buying big market players? This would kind of also go hand in hand with the idea that the front office might not. Although the front office saw a finals run last year, does that mean the front office believes in the future of this team?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because I think no one's really looking at it from that angle of like, okay, we're really going out there known as like, okay, the buy side, but what is the sell side of this? And so, I do see a world where that's possible. However, that being said, I really find it hard that like a piece like Bam is getting settled. Like, I truly believe that Bam is going to be like the number one paid guy on our team at one point. Like, I think, Jimmy has said he wants to retire. How that will happen, I don't know, But, I definitely see a world. I don't see that happening this season or frankly next season, but maybe the season after that. I definitely see, this, the sale of Tyler Hero. I mean, he's the number one bargaining chip at the table. I could definitely see a world with, short term, we're not doing great at this trade deadline. I see a world where, pieces like, Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson could be dealt. And like, I could see that as like, okay, expiring contracts, like, could provide depth to a team. And, that being said, he's got a lot of plug and play players. And, we haven't talked about them, but, the Haywood Highsmiths,
Love
people
them.
are not talking about, look, that's my, I'll save it for my question for you. But, Highsmith, Jovic, Hawkes, like, these guys definitely, I'm not saying they'll be like, top players, but I'm very interested to see how their game is going to translate to a more like realistic piece on the Heat, I mean, the build that Jovic brings is very interesting, I see, if we sort of get that like mistiming of like, okay, we have, Bam, Jimmy, Tyler, and this more like, okay, we need to win now, but, we have this, Jovic, Hawkes, Haywood, like even Hero, I guess, for, a latter extent.
Yeah, he's younger. Yeah,
like,
you're right. Yeah.
Like, what, at what point does it make sense to say, okay, how can we build around them versus like, making the Jimmy Bam duo at its best? I definitely think it's in the cards, longer term, let's say 3 seasons from now, maybe 2. But I could also very much see a world where this, trade deadline comes, we're talking worst case scenario. I could see a world where they say, okay, we're going to try and prepare ourselves for, the Tyler Hero Heat era, the Nikola Jovic Heat era. Like, who are we going to get them with? If we can get, if we can try and trade capital for, a lotto pick, or if we're in the lotto,
Yeah.
And we still have our picks, but it's like that's going to be the one thing is like, okay, it's either going to be, it's going to be 180 degrees from, okay, we're trying to blow up our picks to get a player versus, okay, are we going to try and accumulate some picks to get some players down the road? But great question.
I think you guys are. It's just fascinating to me because I was looking at your guys' team like roster and I sorted by age, and you guys are weirdly like kind of old as a squad. Like Lowry's what 36, 37. Like Love is like 34. Butler's like what like 33 something. Like I don't know. Like Duncan Robinson's also like 29, 28, right? Like even those guys.
Yeah.
Martin is like 29, 28. Like I don't know. And I'm also saying
I mean,
closer to
that's the
selling.
cycle of any player.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I'm also saying closer to selling. I feel like there's a good chance. Like, I mean, if you guys were to sell, it would be 2 years from now, not like this season. I think again because it would go off. It would be weird. You guys don't blow. You guys don't blow up the team in the middle of the season. Like that's not a thing.
No.
Yeah.
On an off season, definitely a different story.
It's an interesting comparison, Max, actually, between your team and the Heat in terms of you have this older generation and then you have this younger generation where you're trying to kind of bridge that gap. And it's a difficult process to try to navigate at the same time.
And the Warriors did not. I mean, in my opinion, the Warriors should have bought in the whole time, right? And we try to navigate it. And like what we used a second overall pick, a seventh pick, and a 14th pick, and got a total of 0 guys who've averaged 15 plus points per game from that. You know,
and a chip.
And that's the thing. That's what's ironic is that despite that, we still want a chip, right?
Right. Exactly.
So it's like I can't really complain, but you know. It's interesting. I would love to. On our last podcast, I kind of grilled the Heat for not buying in, and it's because I'm kind of traumatized from like seeing James Wiseman get 20 minutes a game on a team that's contending for the title, and it's like, why is this guy on the court? You know. So that was just one thing where I'm like, if Jovic doesn't pan out, if that was a guy that you guys are really holding on to during this thing, it's gonna suck. You know. But that's just how it is with trades like this. You know.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting point. I'm definitely with it. It's crazy because also you think about it, it's like, okay, like, you know, who are 2 of the best executives, you know, at least for me, you know, my Mount Rushmore of current, you know, NBA execs is going to be, you know, Bob and Danny Pat, and Pat. And it's like, for me, I'm like, okay, like, you know, how do they navigate this in the future? Especially, you know, I really like that comparison between the Warriors and the Heat and like those situations. And I think you're spot on by saying like, okay, it's kind of like a little bit of a juxtaposition between like, you know, your younger guys and your older guys. And like, you know, we're contending, but we're, you know, kind of rebuilding in a sense of like, okay, you know, we have these young guys that need to develop.
Mm-hmm. And another through line with both y'all teams. I don't know why I'm slurping y'all's teams right now, but I am. Since I think since 2011, one of y'all's teams have been in the finals every single year besides 2021. And for some reason, never actually crossed paths in those finals, but have been in the finals every single year. So pretty cool.
That's fascinating, actually. Yeah, you're right.
But kind of with that, kind of thinking about finals and greatness, one of the questions that kind of came up in general NBA circles during this offseason was how, you know, talking about how good Jimmy Butler has been. So where would you put Jimmy Butler on your all-time Heat ranking?
On my all-time Heat ranking, I think after this offseason, I could put him, well, like, all right, I think I could put him at the 3 or 4 spot. Like, for me, you know, the GOAT of our franchise just got his Hall of Fame accreditation. You know, Dwayne Wade, you know, it was always his team, to put it right then and there. It's like, you know, yes, LeBron came in, yes, Bosh came in, yes, you know, all these incredible players that, like, you know, deserve recognition. But, you know, there's a reason they call it Miami Wade County, and he's number 1. And, like, you know, it will always be his team. You know, I guess number 2, you have to put LeBron there. I mean, you know, I'm sure, you know, there's always the argument of like, okay, well, his second sit with the Cavs and all that. But, you know, it's like, no. We saw Bill and LeBron. We saw him be like the most dominant, like, thing to play the game and like truly, truly go from, okay, like, we have these like, you know, considerations, but when's he going to win a chip to, okay, here's 2. And like,
he's here. Yeah,
he's here. Like, you know, but it's like, you also see what's happened with, like, you know, the Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat is like a relationship in the NBA that's just like you know, you have some guy that's like known as like, you know, locker room problem, like demands multiple trades. You know, I mean, the Timberwolves story is, you know, it's incredible, frankly. Like, you know, it's like the Sixers and, you know, JJ Redick's podcast. I think of that. It's like, you know, people are like, how is he going to be a team leader? How is he going to be like, like an era? And it's like, when I think of that, it's like, okay, in hindsight, like he put the team on his back, he like literally like went on these runs that have, been unprecedented. I think like, since we've been like deep, NBA fans. And it's like, I find it so incredible to see, not only the success he's had, but like, like that he's almost found like a home. Cause I think like, it's like, he's a very interesting build when it comes to players. You don't have this like, this like playmaking like forward as he is, but like also like,
All
he kind of just like go get you a bucket and is all defense and is like, I mean, like what he's gone from being in the Timbs. I mean, like literally, even when you think about when he was on the Sixers, it's like, okay, well, like he was a number 3, a number 2, sometimes a number 4. It's like, okay, like he's going to go straight to being a number 1, and he's also going to excel at that. And he's also 35 plus at this point. And it's like, okay, wow, like what are we witnessing? Like it's like a second revival to his career at times. And it's like, that's what I just find the most impressive. So that's like why I put him at 3. It was like long-winded, but it's like I've really enjoyed like, I think he's going to go down as a Heat legend. And I think, push comes to shove, hopefully, and I'm not throwing shade here at the Blazers, we're going to give him the best treatment possible, and he'll end up with a statue in front of a Kaseya Center. Always changing the name at this point.
I mean, what's crazy is, this might be a topic for another day, but the success that Jimmy's had compared to the success that Dame's had is its own question. But
the Sixers franchise as a whole since it left.
But we got one quote. We got one more section for you here, Levine. We're gonna quiz your Heat fandom. So there have only been 9 All-Stars, surprisingly, in your franchise's history. Can you name all 9 All-Stars?
Yeah, let's see. Okay, we'll have. All right, Alonzo.
Yep.
Braun.
Yep.
Wade.
Yep.
Jimmy.
Yep.
Bam.
So far, so good. 4 more.
Was Ronnie an All-Star?
Who?
Ronnie Siakli or Sikali? He's like our first Heat star. Okay, let's see.
Don't believe so.
He was most improved. He was an All-Star though.
Okay.
Good.
Let's see.
I think you're missing two guys that are semi-evident, and then 2 guys that are tough.
Yeah.
Okay. What years? Give me like 2005.
No.
All right.
There's two of them that you should get. That we've talked about on this podcast already too.
You've said both of their names.
Yeah.
Really?
Just All-Stars.
Whiteside?
No.
Brother.
No.
Wait, you said Alonzo, you said D Wade, you said LeBron, Jimmy, and Bam.
Oh wait, Glenn Rice.
So close, though.
So close.
Really?
Man. Good guess, though. Weird that he's never been one, but no.
No, he wasn't. He was an All-Star after he got traded to the Hornets. He averaged like 26 a game the second year there.
Yeah, dude. No, he was insane.
Think about the one.
Shaq? Yeah, I was gonna say Shaq.
Oh, brother.
It's a big one.
There's just one big one. The other two I think are tough, but there's one guy.
Bosh Allen.
Yeah, Bosh.
Yeah. Honestly, I was trying to remember because, like, I kind of forgot if like they all went, but yeah, no, I
think Bosh actually went like 5 or 6 times with the Heat. He went a bunch.
Bosh never was not an All-Star with the Heat.
We don't talk
That's
about
crazy.
Bosh. He had to retire at 32. Like he was.
It was so sad. No, I mean that was. You want to talk about? literally you want to talk about like how that era ended and unfolded into, okay, like we're going to keep Bosch and we're going to keep on running. And it's like, I think it's one of the biggest what ifs for the, that and Michael Beasley are like the two biggest what ifs for the Heat organization, that and Justice Winslow too, but
Oh man, all the picks that Ainge offered, those stuff.
Yeah.
We got two more on the list, Levine. They're ones from the 90s. I don't know if you got it. I don't know if you're in your bag right now with it.
Here. I'll give you. Okay, one of them I don't think you'll. I'd be shocked, but one of them I think he has a son who's in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
He's a senior.
Well, what's the question?
For All-Star.
It's the All-Star. You still listen to?
Okay, he's from the 90s. And his son is in the NBA?
Actively in the NBA is a junior. Same name.
Okay. Oh, Hardaway.
Bang.
Mm-hmm. Bang. And then the last one is tough. He was an All-Star once in his career. He was an All-Star in 2000 with Miami, where he averaged 16 points per game.
Yeah, kind of a tough one.
Yeah.
Was he a forward?
Yeah. This one's rough, honestly.
Was it Sharif?
No, that's solid.
Sharif Abdul-Rahim.
Mm-hmm.
Was it? I don't know. I think I'm gonna be stuck there.
No, it's all good. It's Anthony Mason.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Who literally played? This is now that I'm looking at this basketball reference page. This is hilarious to me. He played one season in Miami, 16 points per game, 9.5 rebounds a game, and played 41 minutes a game over 80 games.
That's insane.
Was never All-Star before this. That's it. He was All-NBA though in 96, 97, even though he was not an All-Star. Just crazy basketball reference page. Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been tough.
Yeah.
Anyways,
now I know what I'm doing tonight. I'm watching Anthony Mason highlights.
Gotta get educated fast.
Yeah.
But with that, Levine, thank you for hopping on with us. I had a great time talking Heat with you. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we head out?
No, I'm all good. I think, this was an honor. I'm very happy. I'd love to be back on the podcast anytime soon. This was incredible. And yeah, I love, just being able to talk about the Heat, talk about it with you guys. I think I had some ideas coming in with the team, and, I'm very impressed by like how we're able to like talk about it. So, I'm just, very happy to be on.
Of course.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Levine. Love as always. Hope all's well, dude. Looking forward to seeing us battle it out this season in the Eastern Conference. And but fans, subscribers, listeners, and watchers, just stay tuned. We'll be out soon with this podcast. And until then, we'll be here chilling, spitting hoops.
Peace out.